Michael called me in May and said, "What about Little Shop of Horrors?" And I was like, "What?" I couldn't believe it. I was so excited.
iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.
We'll be extending this production until January 19th.
It's completely out of left field. I used to sing it in 7th grade. I would come home into the kitchen and play the VHS of Little Shop and sing Skid Row and cry. And then I saw it on Broadway with Hunter Foster. I saw the first preview on Broadway. It was my first week in New York, actually, in 2003. And I was blown away by the show. And I've always loved the show, but I never dreamt of, Michael called me in May and said, "What about Little Shop of Horrors?" And I was like, "What?" I couldn't believe it. I was so excited.
This was the second most beloved character besides Judy Garland for me. I always thought I should play Judy Garland because I loved her so much and I connected with her. And literally 2 weeks before they called and said they want to offer you Audrey, I saw Ellen Green on YouTube, I don't know why, singing, and I thought to myself, I should play that. There's like no, and then they called 2 weeks later and I was like, so this is my second most desired role to play as an actress, and I can't believe it's like happening.
To me, every time I think about the show, it brings me back to 1981, 1982, and we were evoking, a time in America, actually the Eisenhower administration, and these beach blanket horror movies, and telling the story of a plant that eats people through bubblegum rock and roll, and this hilarious book, and really entertaining score that pulls from all these different rock and roll influences and vaudeville influences, and it's tight as it's 85 minutes long. It's like a thrill ride, and it's all in this little package. And that little package is that theater. Started in a theater of 100, which was the WPA theater. Then the Orpheum was, I think, 300 seats. And Little Shop thrives, it's like a hothouse plant. It just thrives in that environment. It just explodes.
I think it was in 1995, a long time ago, I directed a review of Howard Ashman's songs at the old WPA Theater on 23rd Street. And I remember while I was working on it, we had some songs from Little Shop and all of Howard's shows, really. And I remember saying to Bill Lauk, God, someday, wouldn't it be amazing if I got to do a revival of Little Shop? And here we are. So it's kind of like this great, many, many years later, I get to do it, and it's really fun.
I knew about Howard Ashman a little bit before I worked on this project, but now I've done the deep dive into Howard Ashman, and the script is dedicated to this. The script of Little Shop is dedicated to a guy named David Evans, who I looked up and come to learn is his friend who died of AIDS in the early 80s when they were making the show. And I'm sort of now becoming woke to the fact that this show was happening in the mid-'80s during the AIDS crisis, and Howard died in 1990 of AIDS. And Tom Curtihy, our producer, did this amazing speech about how this was his place where he would go to escape, to see the Little Shop of Horrors in the mid-'80s, to get away from the insanity of what was happening. And so learning all of that and now bringing it to today's audience makes me feel even more invested. I'm a fan of the show, but knowing that kind of history and knowing Howard's story makes me even more inspired and excited to do the show now, especially because we're doing the Howard Ashman version of Little Shop. We're honoring him, we're honoring what he created, we're honoring what his sort of vision was. Michael Mayer, when he was pitching the show to all of us, said, I want to do this show because I love this show. I don't want to do a take on the show. I just want to do Howard and Alan's show because it's so brilliant.
One of my kind of mantras in this business is be the most prepared person in the room. And I was not the most prepared person in the room. These people were so on their game that they made me feel like a little bit embarrassed, like, well, surely we're not all off book day one, like maybe week one. No, but everyone is doing it for the right reasons. You know, when you get some fancy people together for an off-Broadway run, they have to be doing it for the right reasons. Nobody here is doing it for the money. Everyone's doing it for the love of the piece, and when we all heard each other's names, we just got really tickled. And Jonathan and Tammy are so cute together, and the sweetest people, and I've admired them both for so long. And wait till you see these urchins. And Tom, who's playing Mushnik, is adorable. And because we're also doing it off-Broadway, all the covers are singing in the show and a part of the show, so there's nobody like sitting on the sidelines. We're all doing it together, and I think that will translate very clearly in that teeny tiny space.
So I've wanted to do this for over 25 years and never had a chance. And so I guess it was all meant to be that I didn't do any of those so that I could do this one. So it's just an amazing experience to come to work every day and to watch all these great artists do their thing, and to be a part of an extraordinary cast and a wonderful show that is iconic and that everyone's kind of waiting to see it reimagined.
The music, just every day coming in listening to the music, and everyone has your part and you're not in competition. Everyone is given equal time and equal play, and it's just it's an amazing thing to be a part of.
iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.